So I don't know how helpful my love quiz was for you personally. I don't know if there was any great self-revelation, if you found out something about yourself that you didn't know beforehand. Because it's kind of obvious, I think, as Christians, this idea that we're to love one another. That's how Peter starts our reading today, talking about our love for one another and what it means and the particular thing that it means. Of course, we might ask ourselves, why would we listen to him? Why would we listen to what Peter says? I do love reading this letter of Peter because Peter knew Jesus. He knew Jesus. He was probably Jesus' best friend on earth. And he's writing this letter to people who did not know Jesus. And he wants to share something of what he has learnt from Christ. I love verse 8 in chapter 1 where he says, though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. So in a sense, Peter is writing this to all of us who didn't see Jesus, who didn't walk this earth with Jesus. So he's writing it to us here at Parramatta. He's writing it to our friends from Granville Core. And we kind of know really that this loving one another is at the heart of this Christian enterprise, that as human beings we're in the relationship business. Now Peter is also writing this letter to a persecuted church. And if you were to summarise this letter, you'd really say that his advice is stay strong, love one another deeply, for you're the people of God. That's it. Stay strong and love one another deeply, for you are the people of God. And he uses this image, this kind of contradictory image really of living stones. And that stone image runs through our reading today, of living stones. And he says, you're becoming a spiritual house. Now when he says house, he doesn't actually mean the building, right? It didn't actually mean four walls and a roof. He's talking about the house. It's the same sense as we would talk about the house of David. Okay, so it's the family of David, the household, right? So God is building you, living stones, into a spiritual household, a spiritual family. And straight away we get this idea from this, that this is actually a very personal thing, that it's actually about relationships. Because this is about living stones that are connected to one another. It's an alive thing and it's a personal thing. Now we really in our lives have relationships at different levels. And as you get, when you're as old as I am, and I've reached a great age, you realise that you know lots of people in your lives, but you don't know them all in the same way. So I have a friend who I would call one of my best friends. But he lives in Queensland and I live down here, and neither of us are particularly good at talking on the phone, so we never call each other. We send each other birthday messages and Christmas messages and occasionally Happy New Year, occasionally comment on the state of origin. So why would I say he's my best friend or one of my best friends? Really that's because of the experiences that we shared. So we used to, when we were students at the Conservatorium in Brisbane, we lived together. And so my friend Lachlan went through some really difficult things that happened in his life. His younger sister was tragically killed in a car accident, and a few years after that his mum died from motor neurone disease. And kind of we shared that as best mates at the time. And so because of that we're kind of deeply connected. You know, when you've cried with someone, I think that changes the way the relationship is. But not all relationships are like that. Some of my relationships are just Facebook relationships. They're people I met at a conference, a few years ago, and we said, let's add each other on Facebook. And I kind of vaguely remember their name, but I have to look at their photo to see who they are. So the question is, what is the sort of relationships that God would want of us, the living stones that are being built into this spiritual household? But we'd want to be people that have shared life together, that we have deeply shared experiences, that we've cared deeply for one another. I mean, genuinely, really caring for people, genuinely wanting the best for them. That we're known by others, that we know them. What was lovely last Sunday when I went to Granville was in their sharing time. And really all the testimony was about their gratitude for each other, the gratitude for the people who have supported and loved each other and prayed for each other. That's really the heart of this church thing, this Christian household. That's really what it means. And of course, in the same way, we're connected to God, and we'd want our relationship with God to be more than just a Facebook relationship, wouldn't we? You know, we're not just checking an occasional update from God. Oh, that's interesting, God, that you did that. Or sending him an occasional postcard or Christmas card. God is at the heart of this. We're God's people, God's peculiar possession, it says in our reading. It's he who has made us a people. He's our King. As you come to him, Peter says, you are being built, like living stones are being built into a spiritual house. That implies, really, doesn't it, being built, this process of relationship, that there's a work in progress here. Our house is built on the living stone. Our lives are constantly being formed and shaped by God. The building is always going on. I think Sharon and I have shared a few times that we actually built a house in Hurstville, in Mortdale actually, when we lived there in the early 90s. And we'd gone to the real estate agent and said, what's the cheapest house in this area? And they said, well, there's this rundown shack here that you could buy. And we said, well, it's the only one we can afford. We'll buy it. So we built a house. And initially my plan was that we'd get it built in 2 or 3 years and live happily ever after. Well, we lived there for 9 years and the house was never finished. And we did learn a few life lessons about that. One is that building always costs more than you think it will, and it always takes longer than you think it will. And it may well be, you see, that the living house of God will do the same. I think to build the house of God takes longer than we think. And it costs us more than we expect, I think. That is, if the house is going to have value, if it's going to have meaning. And see, the problem for us is that we run up against the problem that Chiara faced. Because houses, the living house of God, is built out of stones. And that's the reality. And it's hard to build a stone wall when every stone is a different shape and a different size, and they don't clip together as neatly as you want. But that's kind of an image of what the church is. It's hard to build the church. It's hard to build the church because we're all different. We're all unique. It'd be great if we were all Lego and we could either choose whether we had 6 or 8 connecting spikes on us or whatever you call those things. But the reality is that the people of God is a house built out of stones that come in all shapes and sizes. If you've ever built a stone wall, you'll know, just as Chiara discovered, that you have to kind of explore to find the right one. Which stone can I find that goes here? If you see a wall being built by a stonemason, they'll have all the stones scattered out so they can find just the right shape and the right size. The other thing you'd find when you're building a house is that in some sense a house is never finished. That houses always need maintenance, don't they? They always need repairs. They always need fixing. They always need painting. But that doesn't matter. The fact that the house, the spiritual house of God, takes a while to build and it takes us time and energy and it costs us a lot. It doesn't matter because it's worth it. Because what is the goal? What is the goal of all this? Peter says you'll be a people belonging to God. You have a purpose, and your purpose is to declare the praises of him who called you. We are building with a purpose, a household with a purpose. We are the temple of God, and in us the presence of God is made real in the world. We are being built into a spiritual house. I love those words at the end of that reading that Ken brought to us. That you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God. People belonging to God and no other. And that is good. That's what we're designed for. That's what we're being built for. Now, it is true that our house mightn't be as good as we would want it. It is true that our house mightn't be perfect. There may be some renovation needed. But what we do know is that it is good. We do know that God is here with us, that he is at work, that our worship is meaningful, that our prayers are heartfelt, that there are genuine loving relationships, that there is faithful, God-honouring service. We're not always what we would want to be, but we would never for one moment think that what we're doing isn't worth it. And what will help us in this whole enterprise of being God's people is to live out of this reality that we are living stones, a spiritual house, that we are the house of God. And the family of God is who we are, and it's our way of being together. And it is God who makes us so. That's what Peter declares. Once you were not a people, but now you are a people. God has done this thing. He is at the centre of it all. So we spend time with God. We come to him in authentic relationship. That is the family business. And like any healthy family, like any household, we love and affirm and forgive and submit, believing that the living God is at work in our house. That our family, our building, is being built into something extraordinary for God's glory. But you might ask, why? Why would we do it? I think the story that has really affected me in the news this week is that story of that young girl that they called Dolly. How can we live in a world where a young girl is so bullied and feels so alone and so beaten down that she would rather take her own life and continue living? How does that happen? I saw a great interview with a person who was talking about what's the solution to this, and he said, while it might feel great to want to punish the bullies, or punish the parents, he said that's not the solution. You could go mad at the school, tell the school they got it all wrong, but that's not the solution. He said it's to sit down with the bullies and with the victims and to feel what each other is feeling. And he said empathy is the solution here. And I kind of agree with him, but I'd say there's more. You see, the people of God, if we truly are, right, if we're not just pretending, if we truly are the people of God, and if we really are a loving, God-shaped, Spirit-filled people, we will be this countercultural witness to the world around us, this living light in our society, where people can say, yes, there is another way to live. We should be beacons of hope. That's what Peter goes on to say just after our reading. He says, you'll live these extraordinary lives so that people will see your good deeds and glorify God. That's the point of this exercise. It's not just for us. It's not just so that we'll feel great, that we'll feel secure. But we change the world when we truly live this out. And the world desperately needs us. Our world somehow is racked by fear and a longing for power and his desire to hurt others. When John wrote his letter, he said the answer to fear is love. It is love that casts out fear. That's our job. That's the business we're in. Our world is marred by sin and anger and fear, and we are called to live the opposite. So much so that even those who don't share our beliefs admire the way we are and see us with each other and say, there is love, there is hope, there is goodness, there is forgiveness, there is mercy. We are God's house. We are his people. And it is good. It is God's plan for us. It is his creation. And we need to live in and participate and believe in all that that means. We need to take God at his word. Each of us is a living stone chosen by God. Each of us, a living stone chosen by God. And each of us is called into this glorious task of building his household, building his family right here. When Sharon and I got married, we asked my cousin, who's one of my good mates, a guy called Dallas, to pray. And I still remember his prayer, and he, not all that he said, but prayed for our marriage and thank God that we'd found each other. And he prayed for me, and he said, just pray for Grant, Lord, he's got a lot of rough edges. I pray that you'll knock a few of those edges off him. He was probably pretty right, really. I still think I have a lot of rough edges, and I do pray that God is still in the business of smoothing those edges. But I believe it's worth it. I believe it's worth it. Committing our lives to this God who's going to shape us into the people that he wants us to be. It's worth it for me. I pray that God will continue to use me. I pray that he'll continue to use each one of you. Because God is building his house from us. Look at us, all shapes and sizes. Yes, and a few rough edges on us still. But God is at work. God is at work. He's building his house. I want us to sing a song. It's really a personal song. It says, Lord, I need you. Here at the start of this new year with all that lies ahead of us. And there's just so much that is unknown for us, isn't there? Really, these next 12 months, so much that is unknown. We trust God. And we know that at the heart of this is our relationship with him. We need to confess our need of him and our longing for him. We need to pray that God will do his work in our lives. I don't know how you're feeling this morning, whether you feel like a piece of Lego and you've got life all organised, or whether you're feeling like a stone that needs a few rough edges taken off. But here is a moment to respond to God, to allow the Holy Spirit to speak to our hearts. If you need to come and pray, please do so, and we will pray with you. Let's be a prayer as we sing this song as our prayer together this morning.